muted.
Welcome everyone back to our Faith, Justice, and Reparations in Evanston workshop series. If you're joining us for the first time, we're glad you're here. This is the last session of the workshop titled, Where Are We Today and What's Next? We have registrants from over 43 faith communities, including Catholic, Episcopal, Unitarian, Jewish, Buddhist, Baha'i, Quaker, many Protestant denominations, and several non-denominational houses of worship. Participants are joining us from Evanston, the Chicagoland area, and outstate Illinois, as well as New York, Massachusetts, and Wisconsin. If you'd like to, please take a moment to greet each other by typing your name and your faith community or other affiliation in the chat while I go ahead and introduce this session. As usual, just a few logistics before we get started. As you recall, these sessions are 90 minutes long and we are being recorded. If you don't want to be recorded, you'll need to turn off your camera and microphone, and you should keep yourself on mute until we open the breakout rooms. So we have no scheduled breaks. So if you need to stand up and stretch or take care of other things, please go ahead and do so, but there won't be a scheduled time for a break. There will be times for questions after our featured speaker today, and you will be prompted to use the chat function to submit your questions during those presentations. Please don't otherwise use the chat after these beginning remarks and you've entered your greetings to each other unless we ask you to do so. Finally, a reminder of our participant conversation agreements, particularly in the breakout rooms that we will be in later in this session. So we want to share again those agreements. Thanks, Adam, for putting that up. So first, listening to each other's thoughts and opinions with respect. Listening to understand, not for agreement or disagreement. Resist interrupting. Wait for each speaker to finish their thought. Step up and step back. Be willing to share your thoughts and to help ensure that others have the opportunity to do so as well. Outside the workshop, do not share information or stories that identify individuals or individual faith communities. And then these discussions can sometimes be difficult, so accept and expect discomfort and try to learn from it. So this afternoon's session will focus on the genesis and the current status of the reparations efforts in Evanston and look at how we, as people and communities of faith, can support these local plans as well as national efforts, both financially and otherwise. Our presenter today was instrumental in the city of Evanston taking steps towards reparations and is now active with both local and nationally focused reparations organizations. Rob Andrew Simmons is the founder and executive director of First Repair, a new not-for-profit organization that advocates for local reparations nationally. She's the former 5th Ward alderperson for the city of Evanston, Illinois, where she led, in collaboration with others, the passage of the nation's first and to date only municipal funded legislation providing reparations based on Black citizens' experience in the aftermath of slavery. Mr. Simmons is also a commissioner of the National African-American Reparations Commission, or NARC, NAARC, and is a member of the Legislative Committee of NCOBRA. She's also previously served as a board member for the National League of Cities, National Black Caucus of Local Elected Leaders, as a board member for Evanston's Connections for the Homeless, and as president of the Evanston Black Business Alliance. So we're honored with her presence with us today. And Ms. Simons, we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Jackie. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to start in memory of Dr. Patricia Effiam and Pastor Zali Webb, two of our community faith leaders that played a really important role in the advancement of our local reparation initiative. I ask that we just honor them with a moment of silence and reflect for a moment on their significant contributions in our community. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm really grateful to be here and join each of you in solidarity, learning, and commitment to reparations here specifically in Evanston. Special thank you to all of the members of the Faith, Justice, and Reparations Workshop Planning Team for organizing this very important series. Special thank you to Sarah Vanderwicken for your patience with me. Thank you to the entire interfaith community for being the first institution in our city to speak out in support of our reparations commitment and for your tangible support. I've said it before, not in this setting, but I believe the faith community is equipped to be the leader or a leader in reconciliation and redress for our past and ongoing injustices in Evanston. Since I envisioned and led the passing of our local reparation initiative in Evanston, there's been great interest in our city and beyond. And so initially I was going to speak only about where we're at and where we're going, but I was asked to talk a little bit about where this falls in the process of, or the goals of HR 40. So although we've made this historic introduction, it is, however, important to acknowledge the long history and pursuit of reparations for people of African descent in America. Black people have been fighting for liberty and justice and relief for our cruel and disparate conditions since we were kidnapped from West Africa and enslaved here in 1619. There are over 250 documented attempts at our uprising in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. In 1865, Union General Sherman ordered Special Field Order 15, allotting 40 acres of land to feed freed families. Shortly after, this was reversed by President Johnson. So not only did freed families not receive reparations with 40 acres and that mule, but white slave owners received reparations for freeing their slaves. So while many white families pass down generational inheritances, our community passes down a protracted and exhausting struggle for justice and our human rights. It is the work of many others that allow us this transformative season in history that we're experiencing right now. And for that, we should never forget those that have fought for reparations before us. Queen Mother Moore, Queen Mother Audley Moore, and our own Alderman Jourdain here in Evanston, and too many others to mention. The contemporary reparation movement for the Black community starts with the introduction of HR 40 by Michigan Congressman John Conyers in 1989. He was pushed and supported. It's important to note that he was supported by Reparations Ray Jenkins, who was a Detroit activist and COBRA member, and eventually many other advocates to introduce HR 40 and pass a commission to study slavery in America. The bill has been introduced every year since 1989. But recently, there have been two important advances since 1989, and an appropriate update to the bill in 2017, written by a NARC team led by our own Dr. Iva Carruthers, who is a Fifth Ward native, and Cam Howard, who has become a friend to Evanston. They rewrote the bill not to just study slavery, but to develop remedy proposals from the impact of slavery and its vestiges. Secondly, HR 40 passed the Judiciary Committee this past April for the first time in history in over 30 years. The bill had not been passed. At this point, the bill will still have to pass the House and the Senate or be passed by an executive order to become law. When that happens, a commission will have to be appointed and they will begin to study the impact of slavery. And after that, remedies will be developed and recommended. Additional legislative actions will be necessary after that. I believe this will happen in our lifetime. I'm really excited that our Congresswoman Jan Jakowski is an original co-sponsor of HR 40, along with 192 of her House colleagues. This is 3 times more the co-sponsors than HR 40 has had since 2019, when we passed our local reparations initiative in Evanston. Our Senators Duckworth and Durbin are both original co-sponsors of HR 40's companion bill, Senate Bill 40, introduced by Senator Cory Booker. You should know that we, the city of Evanston, have officially supported HR 40 since 2002, when Judge Lionel Jean-Baptiste, he was then the Second Ward Alderman, led the passing of the city of Evanston's Resolution 43-R02, slavery reparation. Let us acknowledge that the demand for reparations is not novel, but shamefully overdue. The genesis for Evanston reparations officially started with a legislative process I led in collaboration with many others in 2019. But it truly has been an evolution of insufficient attempts at justice in the Black community. In 2019, I concluded that based on our documented harm and sustained injury, reparations were the most appropriate legislative action to atone for Evanston's Black anti-Black policy and practices, most of which have been outlawed, but not repaired. Additionally, there are other anti-Black practices that are baked into the systems that are founded in exclusion and racism. In studying our data, our history, and our trajectory in 2019, it was a matter of fact that our Black-white racial divides were widening, and our Black community population was steadily in a decline. The data only confirmed what we were experiencing. What I was experiencing personally and civically, and along with you in the community. Our racially segregated neighborhoods and friends leaving Evanston because of unaffordability, over-policing and Black residents' premature death, barriers to access information, wealth, and opportunity, inequitable representation on boards and committees, a continuing achievement gap, and I'm sure you see the theme here, like I did. We were celebrating our diversity while there were $46,000 between us in household income and 13-year life expectancy difference. After months of public feedback and meetings in 2019, the Equity and Empowerment Commission recommended the City Council pass reparations for Black residents. And in September of 2019, Evanston unanimously drew the same conclusion in support of reparations. It's November 25th of 2019 that the City of Evanston passed Resolution 126 R19, and the work continues. And Cobra leader Willard Lett spoke in detail on the 5 components of reparations and where our program fits into reparations, and that it is in fact reparations. It's important to clear up some misinformation. Our first remedy initiative in Evanston is housing redress. And there are 2 important and necessary reasons why this is the first benefit. First, housing was the priority of the Black residents that participated in the discussion of our remedy direction. There, of course, were other recommendations, some outside of the purview of municipal government and others that may be studied as the work continues with the Reparations Committee. Second, we must have a specific harm for a viable case for reparations because we fully expect to be challenged. We have already had a threat of challenge. So it's important that there is a direct correlation to the remedy and the harm. And we have that. We have that found in anti-Black housing policy and zoning laws of 1919 that were enforced through 1969. And from those harms, we can begin to measure the impact and project the losses in the Black community. You can learn more about this case for reparations from Dino Robinson and his partner, Jenny Thompson, at Evanston History Center, and along with the Shorefront Legacy Center. The report should have been provided in this conference packet. We should be hopeful now that we've taken these first steps that we can do more. We've only allocated the first 4% of our reparations fund to the initial benefit. We have over $9 million remaining in incoming cannabis sales tax to deliver reparations, and there's nothing outlawing council from expanding that fund or other institutions from joining the city in commitment to reparations. Beneficiaries are expected to be selected this year. Reparations applications opened last week, or maybe it's been a bit more than a week ago. And in the first 5 days, we received over 100 applications. The applications will remain open until November 5th. And the city is providing office hours for applicants to come and get any type of support they need, whether it's uploading a document or help with the application in any way. Documents are available at the Evanston Library, at Shorefront Legacy Center, at the History Center, and many are easily accessible in our household, include birth certificates and school records. This program would not have been possible without the incredible dedication of our City of Evanston staff, Dino Robinson, Jenny Thompson, Shorefront Legacy Center, Evanston History Center, community members, including Reverend Dr. Neighbors, Alderman Holmes, Alderman Grover, Dr. Effiam. The list goes on, including the Evanston Community Foundation, other philanthropic partners and allies, the interfaith community, past and present reparations committee, our current chair, Alderman Braithwaite, the city council, and hundreds of residents that have participated. And so right now we're in a place where we are supporting the community through the process of application. We have a $25,000 direct benefit that will bring housing redress. It will bring wealth through home equity. And this is important because that is the area of harm that we have a viable case in Evanston. The benefit can be used for a home down payment. It can be used for any type of home improvement or to simply pay down your wealth. So it is definitely $25,000 of wealth that will be enjoyed by recipients that can be used in any way that they choose. We've seen examples of those that have applied that are looking to purchase their first home. An example of a $25,000 housing benefit could be used for a down payment. Based on the average income of our Black community here in Evanston, it's more likely that residents will use an FHA mortgage product or some other low down payment mortgage product backed by Freddie Mac, for example, being around 3% down payment. So this allows for a sufficient down payment, and the balance of that can be applied towards any type of home improvements. Other residents that already own homes are looking for support for deferred maintenance and other just in cosmetic improvements that they would like to enjoy. Nonetheless, $25,000 of wealth is reparative. Homeownership and those that own homes have a more likely path to building wealth no matter the community. So although this is insufficient as a total program, it is our first step in Evanston. It is one that has been certified, in fact, as reparations by the National African-American Reparations Commission and acknowledged by other reparations leaders and followed by other cities across the nation in modeling what we've done in Evanston so far. The work is being led by our reparations committee. Again, it's chaired by Alderman Peter Braithwaite of the 2nd Ward. And our most important staff members really help bring operations to this program. And that is our Deputy City Manager, Kimberly Richardson, our Assistant to the City Manager and Analyst, Tashik Kerr, and Nicholas Cummings, our Corporation Counsel for the City Council. So our lead law professional or attorney at the City of Evanston support this work to make sure it continues viable, that we have a solid case if there is any sort of actual defense that we have to address. And we will continue the work. As stated, we've only set aside the first 4%. And our resolution calls for 3 areas specifically: housing, economic development, and education initiatives. So right now we have a solid case for our housing redress program. Further work will have to happen to develop an economic development case for reparations. And that work, I'm sure, will be supported by Dino Robinson and his team. As well as, it's important to note, we have the support of the African-American Redress Network. They have not only sent letters of support for the work that we're doing, letters of support and partnership if we should have legal challenge or litigation. They would help the City of Evanston pro bono build a legal capacity in that case. It's important to note that the African-American Redress Network is a partnership between the Thurgood Marshall Law Center, Howard Law School, and a Human Rights Center at Columbia University. This organization is led by Justin Hansford and Linda Mann, and they've played a very important role of support and capacity building for us, also working on expanding our impact study for reparations. Additionally, we continue to have the ongoing support and mentoring of both NARC and NCOBRA and other academics and experts across the nation, as well as those locally. An important addition to our reparations program here in Evanston is the support of the Evanston Community Foundation. We know that housing alone is not our only cause for repair here in Evanston, nor is it economic development. And as much as we are demanding redress even in education, that's not it alone. Based on the community feedback in 2019, and these documents are all available on the City of Evanston website, there were recommendations for health, not only trauma, but our physical health, cessation, which means, addressing our current policies that are anti-Black, satisfaction, which means, restoring the dignity of our people, beginning to acknowledge our history in truth and in full in ways like historic markers. And there was a list of other recommendations that were given that are outside of the purview of the City of Evanston or outside of the goals of that resolution. And so with that, there has formed a Reparations Stakeholder Authority of Evanston. It is important that there is a Black body that takes in the information of remedy and develops and recommends proposals. So this Black-led organization, the Reparations Stakeholder Authority, is currently led by Dino Robinson and Reverend Dr. Michael Neighbors, and a group of other leaders. They will begin the work of hearing from the community on what forms of redress do we want to see that's outside of the purview of the municipal government. And so where the Evanston Community Foundation played a very important role in seeding this work, they seeded the fund. They have, they are operating as a fiscal agent of this entity without any operating fees to the entity until they are their own separate 501c3. Additionally, the Evanston Community Foundation recently awarded the Reparations Stakeholder Authority a grant to begin to operate and function as an independent body and do the work of reparations for the Black community in Evanston. So there's still work developing there, and that leadership and that organization will be made up of appointees of historically Black organizations in town, as well as other Black leaders in town and residents in town as well. This separate fund allows the opportunity to expand the redress in Evanston. There's been talk about all forms of reparations as we have begun this work. There's been talk about cash payments. And I'll talk a little bit about cash payments because that seems to even make the news. Know that the work that we're doing is not in opposition to cash payments, but we do have to do the work in line with our case for reparations and that our law department is prepared to defend. Additionally, we are not the federal government, and taxation would be a requirement of a $25,000 benefit. And therefore, for all of those reasons, our first benefit is a direct benefit for housing. I will say that the last reparations committee included myself, Alderman Rainey, Alderman Braithwaite. We were successful in getting a partnership with the Economic Security Fund and the Family Independence Initiatives in delivering a cash benefit program to reparation eligible residents here in Evanston. So there are still residents today that receive a $300 unrestricted cash benefit if they are reparation eligible from a fund from this partnership between FII and the Economic Security Fund. So we support that. We also support HR 40 as mentioned. So as we look at the work that we're doing locally, we also have to acknowledge that this local initiative or any local initiative is not going to be enough to actually repair the racial wealth gap, that it is a first step. It is a tangible and it is a measurable first step. It is in fact reparations, but we have led this work in Evanston always with a nudge to other institutional accomplices here in town and beyond, and also to our Congresspeople to pass HR 40 so that the Black residents in Evanston and those in America can begin to receive redress. And so we continue on. Our meetings, our public meetings are open to the public, and we generally have pretty robust participation from community members, a lot of interest outside of the community, and we will continue to do the work. Right now, I would say the committee is very much focused on getting these initial 16 benefits to reparation recipients. We expect that award to happen in this November, and disbursement will be scattered, determining on how recipients choose to use their benefit, whether they're using it for a down payment of a home. Of course, they'll need time to identify a home, become mortgage qualified, and so on. Others may just simply pay down their mortgage balance. It's also important to note that we fully acknowledge and are aware of much of our harm is also due to financial institutions. Predatory lending has played a a devastating role in the Black community and other barriers to accessing capital and mortgage products and other financial products. With that, we have been working since we landed on housing to find a lender that will provide a companion product, a portfolio of financial products that can be a value add to this initial housing benefit. In addition to adding value to the program, there is a development of a resource guide that will provide a list of Black contractors, residential contractors that can be used, Black realtors, Black closing attorneys, and other Black businesses that can support the reparation program, so that there is a value add of increased business revenue to the Black community while we are receiving the increased wealth through home equity. So there is no belief that this initial program is enough, that it is sufficient, but it fully is in the direction of repair and redress for the harms in Evanston, while we hope that other institutions will join us in doing their part as we continue to expand the work and the commitment here in Evanston. I think I have, yeah, so with that, I think I wanted to leave space for questions. I was hoping there would be more questions that I could add to this conversation, and I would be happy to do so. I usually like to end with what you can do to support the work of reparations, but I understand that that is an actual formal conversation after this, so I will hold that comment and maybe join you as you prepare to have that discussion on what you can do to expand and improve the work that we're doing here in Evanston and nationally.
Great, thank you so much, Robin. And we're going to go ahead and take questions. So Lynn Kendall, who's on our team, has been watching the chat, and she'll be the one posing those questions.
We have several questions already. The first one, if I give money to the City Reparations Fund, will it reduce the dollars that the city has promised, or will it add to the amount that is distributed?
That is a great question. Thank you. We have already begun to receive funds, and it is adding to the commitment from the City of Evanston. So Resolution 126R19, if you want to get familiar with it, states $10 million from recreational cannabis sales tax, and all other dollars are in addition to that commitment from the city.
Very good. Here's the next question.
And they are tax exempt. I should add that as well. So the City of Evanston dollars are tax exempt, as well as the Evanston Community Foundation funds are also tax exempt.
How much impact did input from the Black community in Evanston have in deciding on these three main ways of reparations? What was the process of gathering input from the Black community in Evanston?
So it was fully directed by the Black communities that participated. So I will say now that it's been a big story, there's a lot more engagement than there was in 2019. Understandably, Black folks, sometimes maybe we're hopeless and we don't believe that it can happen, or maybe we're unable to participate. But there were residents that participated in 2019 that gave recommendations. Those recommendations were pared down and divided into categories. First of all, what's within the purview of the City of Evanston? There were recommendations including a Fifth Ward school, Northwestern giving free tuition to Black residents, and other recommendations that were outside our purview. Those are other institutions. But the Black community weighed in 2019 by way of several public community meetings. There were public meetings by the Equity Empowerment Commission in April, May, and June. In July, there were 2 separate meetings specifically on hearing what forms of reparations do we want to see here in Evanston. And then the process continued with public meetings and Equity and Empowerment Commission until the September of 2019, when the City Council took it from there to pass reparations and fund it with cannabis sales tax. So the Black community weighed in Fortunately, now that there's so much awareness to the work that is happening, more Black residents will weigh in as the work continues from here on.
Our next question. If someone gets funds from Evanston, will that limit what they could get in the future when federal funds become available?
So that's a great question. So the federal funds have, first of all, the commission has not even been passed, but this is independent of any other government body. So it will not limit you. These are City of Evanston dollars. The good news and what we hope will happen with the local reparations movement is that when federal funds become available, there'll be some infrastructure in place already, a convened stakeholder group, Black residents that are already involved and engaged, that can help guide how federal dollars could come down and be dispersed at a local level. But the answer is no, it will not interfere.
All right. Now, you already said that these payments are tax exempt, correct?
Correct.
All right. So our last question then is this. A lot of the public flack that you are getting seems to be a result of your not showing a larger plan for reparations into which the housing initiative fits, a plan that includes education, economic redress, healthcare, etc. These areas do seem to be more difficult to tease out the details, but seeing the larger picture might allow folks eligible for reparations to see where their needs will be met. Could you please comment on this?
Absolutely. And I agree. The needs are broad and multifaceted. The harms are in every area of our community. And it seems that just this one program is insufficient. And I will agree that it is. But I think more energy should be put into the other institutions like Northwestern Medical System, Amita Health, North Shore, Northwestern University. The District 65 seems to be doing really good work right now. But how can we work together as a community to come up with more of a comprehensive look at redress for our Black residents? The City of Evanston is doing its part, beginning to do its part. And my only hope is that now more partners will join in the work that we're doing and help expand in the areas where they are responsible and help push Evanston, the municipal government, to even do better with our first $10 million. We're committed to do this work for 10 years. My hope is that future city councils expand it, that it is passed into perpetuity. But I think that's more of the conversation. Not so much what we're not doing right, but what other institutions can do to help even support the work that's happening in Evanston. Northwestern has brilliant scholars and researchers and resources that can help us with our work. And I think that this is a community initiative where we should be working together as a community. And I can appreciate residents that are not satisfied with this initial program, but I hope they remain hopeful that there is more to come. I will see to it there's more to come. Although I've retired as alderman, I serve on the committee and I'm fully committed to improving the work that we're doing here in Evanston.
Jackie, do we still have time for more questions?
Yes, go ahead and take a couple more.
Very good. Here's a question. I get that housing is the harm that can be documented and the place to start. What harms are the priorities for the Black community?
Well, right now the priority is housing, and that's why we've taken this first step with a housing remedy. But we've seen that there's over-policing. The way we were able to restrict the cannabis revenue was because there were 71% arrests in the Black community while we were 16% of the population. So we know there's a harm in over-policing. We know that there are health inequities and disparities, a life expectancy gap of 13 years between Black and white Evanston. We are all familiar with the achievement gap and the goal for a Fifth Ward school that lost a referendum several years ago, and there's a new movement that looks like we'll see a Fifth Ward school. So housing has been the first. I would say they're all a priority. I'll just say that housing has been the first action that's been taken.
All right. This next question is, what do you think the faith community could do to work with the entire community to increase understanding of to increase understanding, financial and other support? When you said the faith community could have a role, is that just in terms of the faith leaders speaking out or more than that?
Well, it's more than that. So the faith leaders could speak out on behalf of the faith community. You know, I should have started with greetings from Faith Temple Church, where my pastor is Pastor Carlos Moody. I grew up and was raised and educated in the faith community. So more of what you're doing today could be how the faith community supports in holding, talks and education, small groups, giving feedback to the reparations committee on what you're hearing from the community. Of course, giving in a tangible way is always helpful. You have two ways that you can give officially, either through the RSAE or the City of Evanston. And you can even begin to do your own independent forms of reparations and hear from your congregations. So the opportunities are endless. Unfortunately, the injuries are endless as well. The divides, the racial divides and harms are broad. So you can either give, you can continue educating the broad community, your memberships and the friends of your membership, as well as partnering with the City of Evanston in giving them feedback that you collect to the Reparations Committee, and the same thing for the Reparations Stakeholder Authority of Evanston. I should also add that giving to organizations that support the movement for reparations. There are historic organizations, there are newer organizations that are beginning to do reparations work that's beyond equity work, and those are other areas of redress as well. But I would say most important for the faith community is keep us in prayer. Keep the community reconciliation in prayer, the leaders that are doing the work in prayer, the residents that have been harmed in prayer, those that are disgruntled and not feeling this is adequate in prayer, because they're also not wrong. They're also right. Everybody is right in this scenario, that it is not enough. It's not happened soon enough. It's not happening quick enough. And we need more redress. So I would ask that you also add the Black community and the goals for reparations to your prayer list as you are delivering prayer on behalf of the community.
Very good. It looks like the last question we have at the present time is, how do we keep these efforts led by our Black community?
The way that you do that is you make sure you're inviting Black residents to support and lead. Oftentimes in our community and human and social services, there are practitioners or academics, but not necessarily those that have experienced the harm that the organization is leading in. So make sure that Black residents don't necessarily have to be technically a leader. We're all a leader in some right. God is not a respecter of person. And so I believe that Black residents that have a lived expertise, and we all do, should be invited to these conversations and as decisions are being made.
Well, you seem to have answered all the questions that have been submitted up to now.
Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you for leading the initiative in Evanston and for taking the time today to share more information about the reparations programs and answer people's questions about them. We're going to take a minute and go ask Sarah Vanderwitken from UCE to share some information about an opportunity. They have set up a reparations matching fund, and she wants to talk a little bit about that. So that's the next thing that we're going to go to at this point in time. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Robin. So when a group of us at the Unitarian Church started thinking last spring about having some kind of workshop on reparations, because lots of our members really didn't understand what was going on or needed more context and so on. part of the rationale or the thought we had was to develop financial support for the reparation funds. And so at this point, we do want to encourage you, as Robin just did, to donate to one of the two funds that she talked about. If you want to donate and prefer to donate to the city's fund, that you're welcome and encouraged to do that. And we'll have information on the details for how to do that in the follow-up email that we send out, which we're going to do to everyone. And as Jackie just said, we also came up with the idea of having the incentive of having a matching fund so that whatever you donate will be matched, or at least up to a certain amount. It'll be doubled. So we did some specific fundraising, primarily from our church, to develop a matching fund. And we now have one that's a little bit in excess of $13,000. So if the combination of donations from this workshop ends up being 13,000, then it would be an effective donation of 26. And if, you know, all you generous folks donated together 26,000, their effective donation would be 28. So, and so on. Robin described the Evanston Reparations Community Fund as, and the leadership of that, which is the Reparations Authority, Reparations Stakeholders Authority of Evanston. That's the group that's getting the 501c3 designation and is housed at the Evanston Community Foundation. And we decided that because of the ease of record keeping, basically, and being able to see readily what the donations from this workshop would be, that we will double the amount that is given to that fund. And again, this will be detailed in your letter, but basically how it'll work is that, and Adam, do you have the slides for the reparations fund? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so to take advantage of the matching fund, you can either write a check or donate online, and any donation will be tax exempt. And you'll get a letter from the foundation to that effect. So if you're writing a check, it would be made out to the Evanston Reparations Community Fund, and in the memo, you would write Interfaith Reparations Workshop. If you want to donate online, you would go to the website for the foundation, which is evanstonforever.org, and click on giving. And then on the next slide, yeah, so there you see this, the second thing down there. So giving, and then the Evanston Reparations Community Fund. You click on that and you'll get an information sheet that tells you more about the fund and how it's going to work. And there will also be a spot for a place that says, there's a link to give now. Down there, support the fund. And you click on that. And then the next thing you would do, it's many steps, but it's doable. The next thing is that you would, next slide, there you go. Then you put in the amount of the donation, and then critically to us in terms of the matching fund, put in where there's a little box for special notes or instructions, and you would put Interfaith Reparations Workshop. And that way they can give us, I guess towards the end of October is what we would figure most people would give by. And they'd give us a total and then we would match. So that's the way it'll work. And we'll, again, this will all be in the follow-up email. But meanwhile, thank you for any donations to these two funds. And as Robin said, to other organizations that are supporting reparations around the country.
Great, thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you to the UCE community for presenting this matching gift opportunity for all of us. So of course, financial support directly to one or both of the two reparations efforts is great. However, several of our speakers have suggested there are other ways that we can and should support reparations, racial justice, and reconciliation. In a few moments, we're going to divide into breakout rooms where you're going to discuss additional ways, financial and otherwise, that repair can be made by you individually, by your own faith community, and perhaps by continued joint work with others in our community. So please consider ideas for furthering repair and reconciliation in the way suggested by our session 1 presenter, Willard Lott, with humility and deference to what Black people have themselves identified as necessary for that repair. A few questions. How can faith communities actively engage in supporting reparations? What obstacles exist and how can they be addressed? What are you personally going to do to move forward reparations? If you need more structure to the conversation, you can also consider the 5 injury areas that Willard mentioned and identified: peoplehood, education, health, criminal justice, and wealth/poverty. So you don't need to take these questions one at a time in your groups, just see what bubbles up in conversation. We put these into the chat so that you have them right now to take a look at. And you can also just jot down a few notes to yourself as you go into these breakout rooms. So we are going to ask you to report back this conversation, report back and share with us what comes up. So note what group you're in and choose a spokesperson or a scribe who'll be able to share kind of the main ideas and thoughts that arise. You're going to have about 15 minutes or so in this breakout before we call you back to the group. Please keep in mind our guidelines that we presented at the beginning of the session around how we'll be in conversation with each other, and especially the one about stepping up, offering your viewpoints, but stepping back to allow everybody in your room to participate in the conversation and share their thoughts. So Adam, our tech wizard, is going to break us up into breakout rooms. We have about 80 people, is that right? Or 90 people signed in right now. Somewhere in there. So breakout rooms of around 7 people in a room, 6 or 7 people in a room would be great. So we'll be launched soon into breakout rooms. Look forward to hearing from you when you come back.
You said 15 minutes, right?
Yep, 15 minutes. Okay, Adam, do we have everybody back at this point?
Hopefully.
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. Okay. So welcome back, everybody. And we would love to hear what your group talked about and the ideas that were shared. So we'd like to kind of do a report out by group and have that person who volunteered for your group to take notes and be the spokesperson to do that at this time. Keep the reporting short. Maybe the rest of you who are in the room, add to the chat things that were talked about that you want to make sure get shared, because we're going to share all of these ideas with each other and one of our follow-up emails. So we don't want to lose them, because we believe that this work is important and we want everybody to be able to have a chance to share ideas about how we can move forward. So use the chat during this time period when you're hearing the report outs and let us know the ideas that came up so we can send them out to everyone. So group 1, well, let's just start at the beginning. Who's the spokesperson for group 1?
Group, I was muted for a second. Group 1 was my group.
Great.
One of the things that came out of group 1 was understanding that there are people actively interested in anti-racism, in anti-racism work and want to work on it and just don't have the idea of how to start. So we have one person from the Friends community who is interested in having people come to his community to speak about racism. So being able to form relationships with is one way of continuing the work. And of course, it was also mentioned to give money to one of the two reparations funds and to encourage conversation in our faith communities about the workshop, to make sure that people know about it and to make sure that they also know that they can listen to the workshops at a later date, that they're available.
Thanks so much, Cheryl. Thank you for that report out. Again, please type in the chat, folks, additional thoughts of what came up. So group 2, who do we have?
I am group 2.
Oh, great.
Is that all right?
Thank you.
Okay. Efforts made in our faith communities. A lot of us are working hard at learning about disparities and learning our complicity and our responsibility in the fate of the Black community in Evanston and elsewhere. And what can we do? A great suggestion was to share our wealth significantly. And her suggestion was to put in her estate planning money for land trust, or money to dedicate to the Community Partners for Affordable Housing in Evanston. A chunk of change, not just pocket money. Giving back, sharing the wealth that we have been privileged to build over the generations. We also started in on trying to talk about changes in systemic racism and health, but we didn't get very far with that.
Great. Thank you, Margaret, so much. Okay, group 3.
I don't know which group I was. I don't know what group we were in. Sorry, what number.
It's okay, Annette, go ahead.
Okay. We had some really good points coming up. So Robin was in our group first, and she wanted to explain what she put in chat already, that technical support is very much valued. And she says there are so many skills that they could use, I mean, in terms of setting up websites, like we use Adam. So that would be really appreciated if some people would come forward to volunteer instead of them having to raise the funds to hire somebody. And so they made connections. She said they appreciated all the connections they made to leaders of institutions such as bankers or professors at the university, so they could lend their expertise. Someone said that she's from Denver, a social worker, classmate of Robin, and she said she intentionally seeks out employees, Black employees, and pays them more, and calls it reparation. And there's often a questioning of wages when Black people charge more, that is being questioned, and they sometimes charge more because they feel that's reparation. So that was a good one. And then, and Mara, if you want to add something to that, I'm just summarizing. And also, we asked the question about the property tax in Evanston. Sometimes people are being forced out of their homes because property taxes are being raised, and Robin was affected by it herself. 100% increase in property tax. So she said there was the movement of starting a property tax fund, as far as I understood it. And you can work it out in other ways too, but you can't just reduce property taxes with you can't use the 25,000 for the county, but they were working on setting up a property tax fund that hasn't moved forward yet. And something else somebody said, if Black people saying, oh, white people are coming to me and asking about things they just didn't know what happened in the past, all these terrible things that happened in the past, suggest to them, send them to me as a white person. I can share the information I have. So instead of having Black people explain themselves and enlighten white people. So if anybody else can remember something that I haven't touched on, but I thought there were some really good points.
Great, so people can add to the chat and make sure that we get those. Any other
Good.
points that are missed? Great, so let's see, group 3 or 4, I don't know where we are, 4, I think. Wynn, if you're group 4, you need to unmute.
Thank you. A very engaging group, all very focused on this idea. And the comments were such as to, finding a group to donate to and either individually or help do fundraisers. One person is keeping a running list of groups. If something comes up, she makes notes so she can support it. Someone else suggested the Citizens Network of Protection is another group, nonprofit we could give to. That's for the police oversight. Somebody wanted to do technical help with the storefront in all the history that they are sifting through and reporting with Dino. Another person said their social justice church committee, this is at St. Nick's, was doing fine work. Among other things, they're reading books together. One is The Color of Law that they recommend. And education came up quite a bit. And in that regard, Northwestern, being the white elephant or whatever we talk in the room, the elephant in the room, and to go after them a little bit for some support, their history, their past history in the town, how they could be helpful in the future. And perhaps if there's a Fifth Ward school, they do have a school of education and social policy, and they could certainly maybe help with their expertise on that new school that might come about. And I do feel everybody and engage the Northwestern students a little bit too. But I think there was a whole feeling that this is not the end. This is a sharing of information, and we all want to move forward. And I hope that this group will have a way of connecting us all to do that.
Great, thank you, Wynn, very much. So group 5.
I will speak for group 5 because we didn't really make note of anybody in particular. So like most other groups, we really talked about the importance of being well educated about the issues because it's complex and it's always evolving. That people have been quite surprised, really shocked by the nature of our history within this community. We tend to think that that's not what Evanston is, but indeed it is. That it's important that if this the whole issue of reparations has not surfaced in a community, that people go back to their leadership and insist that this is something that needs attention and acknowledgement. And I think Rosalie put in the chat of instituting a truth commission to really examine one's own faith community's participation, its history of racist policies, discriminatory practices. So without being repetitive of what has already been said, I'll leave it to the next group.
Great, thank you, Lynn. Okay, so 6. Somebody from group 6? Okay, I'll move on. 7. If you don't know what group you're in, jump in.
Sorry, I'm speaking for group 7. We spoke about what various faith communities have been doing so far, the sorts of programs that have been held, what our social justice committees are up to and how important that is. We also spoke about how influential it can be to set up a partnership so that those of us that are in faith communities that, as Woolard put it, tend to be melanin deficient, are able to find out more about what needs to be done and what the Black community would like to see done. And then, of course, we also spoke about how we'd like to contribute to the funds and show support to what Evanston, what the city is already doing. And we also spoke about the influence of Northwestern and maybe expanding this effort to include the harm that's been done to Native Americans as well as to the Black population. And I'm sure other people in my group will have other things to add.
Great.
It's a rich conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jane. So make sure to add your comments in the chat if you didn't hear them from your session leader. Okay, so I think I'm on 8.
Okay, I'll speak up for 8, although I don't know what group we were. The main thing that I hear from our group is that it's so difficult getting people interested in not just reparations, but in anti-racism. And we all agreed that you have to educate, and educate may be bringing in speakers, maybe reading books and doing book studies. But as Kristen said in our group, we've got to educate, but we can't wait till everyone's educated before we start acting. So we got to act as soon as we feel like we have enough knowledge and know where to go and what to do. Also appreciated sharing of St. Clement's Church is partnering with St. Nicholas here in Evanston, which I think is marvelous in this pairing of churches. And it's a way to get more people involved. And anything else that the group recognizes me that you want to say?
Okay, the group with Nan, make sure to put extra comments in the chat so that we capture them, anything that she missed.
Oh.
Other group 8.
Okay, I'll speak for the other group 8. So much has already been said. We spoke quite a bit about how we educate ourselves within our communities and the frustration with the fact that activists tend to be the most engaged, and and it's harder to reach people who are not already engaged. One of our members suggested that there be an effort made to educate our faith communities about their complicity in the racism in Evanston, in our history, and also our complicity nationally. And let's see, efforts that, oh gosh, there's so many. I wrote down a lot of kind of books and movies. One congregation shows movies and then has discussions afterwards, and strongly recommends The Long Shadow. Let's see, another idea was possibly to get the youth involved, to get if the youth become engaged through action or getting to know people from the other race, they may pass on information to their parents and get parents who were not yet engaged more so. And let's see. One individual talked about her own personal plans and suggested
creating an individual reparations fund, which could then feed organizations like HBCU, historically Black colleges and universities, or might support agencies that are helping people who are leaving the prison system. So anyway, that's another idea. But a lot of what we talked about is how to get people engaged who weren't already.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bert. So we got about a minute and a half left here for other groups to report out. So I'm going to ask you to speak up if you have not spoken up yet so that we can get more input, and then also keep putting stuff in the chat.
Teresa was going to, we thought we were group one, but Teresa was going to summarize us. Teresa Murray.
Teresa?
Hello, everybody. We talked about getting more tutors for kids of various ages, programs that maybe Northwestern students could participate in, or members of churches. And we talked about scholarships for those who want to go to nearby junior colleges as well, because it's still expensive to go to school with books and fees. And we spoke about the maybe a shuttle service in getting people to the libraries, a drop box at the library. And one person mentioned she'd like to participate in more book discussions. And so I know that the library has always been open to that, as well as the Levy Center. And the library can show groups how to get their own Zoom going and how many people who can participate in Zooms for a certain cost. So those are the main things that came to mind from our group.
Thank you so much.
Can anybody else think of anything else, or put it in the chat?
Thank you, Teresa. Yes, indeed. Please feed that chat as much as possible, so we've got everything documented. It's all good. Anything else that any other group that needs to report out?
Group 11, we were discussing the fact that a lot of families in Evanston were renters and continue to be renters, and how this program benefits them if they're not ready to move on to purchasing a new home.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Is this, I mean, there are many generations of families that have rented and have seen their rents go higher and higher and higher in Evanston and have had to move out. Is there a way of helping people hold on to their rentals, that they're not being forced into other communities?
Great. So we're going to put that into question and pose the thoughts about that with Robin and others. It's a great idea and a great point. Okay. We're running out of time on this, so I think what I'll do is just ask, please continue to put information in the chat if your group didn't have a chance to report out. We appreciate all the ideas and we will be sharing them. So they're great ideas, many of which you can act on, we could act on right away. And if your faith community hasn't already done so, as a faith community, to sign the National Council of Churches support letter for HR 40 is something that we would recommend as a group. It is on our website in the resources under faith and reparations as a top recommendation. So this is something that you can bring to your own community, faith community. I signed it as an individual as well. So you can continue to make an individual signature or add a community signature. Many of our national, for organized religions, national denominations have signed this already, but the more signatures, the better. And of course, that's something we'd highly recommend. Certainly there were some suggestions about volunteering with Shorefront to be able to help them move their initiatives forward. Now we also have a suggestion of some tech support for the folks who are working on reparations. And we'll get more information about who you might want to contact to be able to do that as a volunteer. And then also anybody, a couple people mentioned, you can take these recordings. I mean, we made recordings and shared the links to all of them with you. They're on YouTube, to your own faith communities. If you're an advocate in your community on social justice committee, send it to one of your friends who isn't and say, this was meaningful to me. And why don't you take a look? So getting it out into the community, the information that we've been able to share on these series is another possibility. Some of the people in this room might want to join with each other in this room, Zoom room. Want to join with each other to continue this work and conversations. So that's great. Interfaith Action has been working to try to gather the committee chairs of the social justice organizations to come together and be talking more about what faith communities are working on across their community in regard to reparations and climate change and other major issues, refugees, things that we all have actually work going on, but other ways to share in that work because there's more power in those communities being able to do that together. So that's another place that we can, play. And you can make sure that your social justice team is in touch with Interfaith Action and is joining in those conversations. So we'll share ideas, as we said, with in our follow-up emails, and you can look for those coming up. We would love to get your feedback on the Faith, Justice, and Reparations workshop series. So right after this session, you're going to see an email in your inbox that will be an evaluation form for the series. And we'll hope you complete it and submit it, provide us with your feedback and ideas about moving forward. And then again, the recording of this session with additional information about how to contribute to the community fund, Evanston Reparations Community Fund, will be following up as well. So I just want to say it's been a privilege to be present with you over the past 3 weeks as we've explored faith, justice, and reparations in Evanston together. And I want to invite our planning team right now, the folks who've kind of worked for several months to bring the workshop to you, to help close this series with a responsive reading. So please stay muted as the responsive part, except for my planning team folks. And there is a refrain. So after each person who speaks, please add and say the refrain, "May it be so." Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah?
I had to unmute. Holy Spirit, giver of life, source of love, compassion, and justice, we pray for forgiveness for having failed to see or take action against the enormous wrongs visited on Black people in this community and country for so many years.
May
it be so. May we have the humility to realize we will always have more to learn, and the discipline to take time for learning. May it be so.
We pray for the deep understanding that along with the grace of love and the abundance of the earth comes responsibility and accountability.
May it be so.
We also pray that we will remember to share the insights and learnings from this workshop with others, particularly those in our communities of faith and other organizations we associate with.
May
it be so.
We pray for the clear understanding and acceptance that the people who have been harmed by racism are the ones to determine the nature of the appropriate remedies for the harms suffered.
May it be so. And that acts of reparation must be understood as justice, not as charity. May it be so.
Help us to understand that there will inevitably be differences of opinion and interests among those harmed, that these matters are complex and multidimensional.
May it be so.
May we remain stalwart in our support of repair and reconciliation, even when it gets hard and uncomfortable.
May
May
it
it
be
be
so.
so.
Help us remember that silence can be as destructive as violence, and that action speaks louder than words.
May it be so.
We pray that whatever kept our forebears from speaking and acting against the racism visible around them does not keep us from forthrightly confronting it today, whether visible or less
This
so.
is Teresa.
May it
May it be
be so.
So,
Give us the strength and the courage to keep showing up, to work for reparations and racial justice, and help us to engage and support other community members in doing the same.
May it be so.
So thanks to all of you again for sharing this space and time with us, and be on the lookout for a couple of more emails from us. Keep your spirits strong and your activism alive.
Amen.
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 Yeah.